Welcome to the Thought Brothers. Let's see, what day is it? I'm so confused. So much stuff is happening. I'm Gary Johnson, aka Mr. Producer. It's the 27th of September. We have the instigator, agitator, researcher, William H. Spivey, also known as Bill. And we got the banker man down there. We're going to be talking something about the bank. You ain't going to get off early, man. We're going to get you. Mr. Spivey, I'm tossing the ball over to you. I notice we don't have our sunglasses on, but we still believe. At least I still believe. What we got? Well, let's talk politics. Let's talk politics.
You want to talk politics?
Yeah.
Well, I hate to do this to my thought brother because I think a lot of it. But I'm going to have to put him on the spot. So, Carlos, you got on your bulletproof vest. And
come on, man. Bring it.
On that chair you
bring it. Go ahead. Bring it, man. Bring it.
Okay. Carlos, I'm going to start off like this. I know you're a banker. So now, if I come into your bank and I want to say make a $500,000 loan, what do you require?
Ooh, how about that? So the question is, what do I personally require, or what do most financial institutions require?
What do most financial institutions require?
Hey, well, look, here's how it goes down, right? Lending is not just based on credit. It's also based on assets and your ability to repay, which is called, your financial history. So credit is technically your financial history, but also assets. I mean, if you're applying for a $500,000 loan and you got $500 million in the bank and you just don't want to touch that for some reason, then your assets come into play just as well as your credit. But at the same time, you do need a combination of both. Okay. So that makes a huge difference. So to answer your question without going into 10 different directions, those are the two things you need. But credit's most important, because if you have no money, which the majority of people who apply for loans or lending don't have the money to buy a car outright, don't have the money to buy a house outright, don't have the money to, to do a $50,000 improvement on their home. So they're actually borrowing the money because they really need the money, not borrowing the money because they don't have access to their $500,000 in stocks until first of the year because of tax time or something like that. They're borrowing. Average people are borrowing money because they don't have it. So credit, that's why credit is primarily the most important thing. But again, assets do come into play as well.
Okay. So, a wise man once said, and I believe he was the producer's daddy. He said, if you got good credit, you don't need no money.
Better than money.
And if you got money, you keep your money and you use somebody else's money.
Sounds about right.
Okay, so I tell you where I'm confused. Now, let me ask this then. Do you have a different requirement? I think you probably already answered it. Do you have a different requirement for, let's say, Bill Spivey coming into your bank asking for $500,000, or Tiger Woods? Now I won't say Tiger Woods; he's black. Let's say Phil Mickelson coming into your bank asking for $500,000. Is the requirement different if you are very wealthy and if you are not so wealthy?
Well, keep this in mind, right? Through federal banking regulations, right? Everybody's supposed to treat everybody the same. I don't even want to go into the regulation this and the regulation that and the Fair Lending Act and all these different things you got to do, because everybody's supposed to treat everybody, with fairly. Okay?
That's where I was trying to get you to, my brother.
Okay,
so
good.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
How can a man try to get a loan from a bank, which 8 out of 10 times, as you said, your collateral, or say if I'm trying to get a loan for $500,000, my collateral is going to be my house that I own and my other assets.
Sure.
So if I come into your bank and I tell you I want to borrow $500,000, and you tell me to fill out an application, and I put down on my application that my house is valued at $875. Now I know when I put that down on my application that my house is only valued at $550, but I put down $875.
I know where you're going.
Then you ask me, what's the square footage on my house? And instead of 3,500, I put down 7,500.
Well, that's a process that's called underwriting, where people have to verify the information that has been provided.
Well, why I'm
Obviously, for the person I know who we're about to talk about, that information was not verified. Or if it was verified, somebody did something they weren't supposed to do. Ooh.
So you mean like pay off an appraisal person?
Ooh.
And you know, I thought about that angle. I said, well, suppose I'm asking for 500,000. My house is only valued at 575, and I tell your bank that it's valued at 875.
Somebody supposed to check that out, man. They supposed to verify that.
They're supposed to verify. But let's say the appraiser comes to my house, and I said, look, man, you know, I need you to run this up to around 875. So I'm gonna slide you $2,000 to give me an 875 appraisal on my house. I still personally don't think that would fly, because banks are kind of like real estate agents. They run comps for your area. And when they run the comps for your area, if they see that, and you can go to Zillow and find out
they run comps
for value for anybody. If you go to Zillow and you find out my house next door is 550, the house across the street from me is 580, and the house down the street from me just sold for 575. How can I get your bank to believe that my house is valued at 875 unless I got somebody on the inside at the bank?
Well, all I can say is everyone's supposed to be treated fairly. Everyone's supposed to do their due diligence to check and verify and authenticate all the information that's been provided. And when you see something, like you said, that doesn't fit, that doesn't make sense, that's supposed to send up, you know, another signal, a smoke signal, so to speak, for somebody else to do more due diligence to verify the information we have is legitimate. If that doesn't happen, shame on the institution that allowed, or the organization that allowed that person to inflate their wealth, their collateral. Shame on them. I mean, you making me think back to Enron days. Come on, man. Come on. This ain't Enron, but.
Well, your former president, he inflated the value on his property by 200%.
200%.
200%.
200%.
And he raised his condominium at Trump Tower was 11,000 square feet, and he put it in as 30,000 square feet. And apparently the federal regulations that you spoke of earlier did not apply. However, the judge on yesterday, I believe, said, you just got caught, and we're not going to even have a trial. He issued a summary judgment, which is kind of odd, because usually it's the defense asking for a summary judgment, saying the prosecutor doesn't have enough information in order to go to trial. And we're asking that you dismiss this or give a ruling right now. And he did give a ruling. He gave a ruling and said, Mr. Donald Trump has committed fraud over a number of years. But I was just perplexed at how he got this through lending institutions. And you mentioned the key thing is federal regulations. But I guess, as I've said before on this show, there's two sets of rules, one for the rich and one for the not so rich.
Yeah, and that's a shame. I mean, I think that we're seeing evidence every day in every walk of life and everything that happens where, you know, certain people get treated a certain way and certain people don't get treated a certain way. You know, you can go from white to black, you can go from rich to poor, you can go from city to country. It just seems like, for whatever reason, you know, we all have our speculations on the reasons, but, you know, there's two sets of laws that apply. I know that, you know, as a young man, you know, or at any age, if me and a bunch of friends tried to storm a 7-Eleven and take all the snacks out of it, or candy out of it, we would have been probably hunted down by the local police and thrown on the ground, cuffed, and taken to jail. But yet, people can storm the U.S. Capitol. Some of them are getting sentences, but the other 400 are just sitting at home watching reruns of Friends. So, hey, man, that's all I got. I mean, So it's definitely two different sets. I can't call that one. I don't know what to say, but it's just it ain't right, but it's happening, and it happens every day.
Yeah.
Quick to say that would not have happened on your watch had you been in the mix. You would have flagged that.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt, you flag anything that's out of the ordinary, out of pattern. You want to keep integrity at the highest level, because once you go down that road, or someone goes down that road, then you start talking about reputational risk and all that type stuff. You don't want that. Nobody wants that. I mean, I don't care if you run a candy store or ice cream shop. You don't want that. You can't say there's a fly in the ice cream one time and expect to sell ice cream every weekend and everybody knows you didn't have a fly in the ice cream. You can't do that. You can't do it, man. So if you can't do it with ice cream, you definitely can't do it with money. But I guess some people can do whatever they want.
So basically what you're saying is there's no exceptions to the lending rule. There's a standard that you follow. And
that's correct.
In this particular case, on several occasions, I think the judge said over the past 15 years, people have not followed the standard.
Well, look, I think we should get to the real topic here. The real topic is simply this. How do you put this in the best words? I'll believe it when I see it. It sounds like it's a slam dunk, but I think there's like, over 90 more slam dunks out there, but I don't know. They keep figuring out ways to get around them. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, this particular one,
this one sounds legit.
This one seems very interesting because this is a summary judgment. So this means that everything is done. I mean, now the only thing they're trying to decide is what the penalty is going to be. But the unique thing was the judge entered a cancellation of their business certificate. And right. that is really the slam. I mean, yeah, I think Letitia James is asking for $250 million in fines. And so now you cancel the business certificate, which means that a lot of the properties may have to go into receivership. And they're going to appoint a receiver. And a lot of these properties are going to have to be sold. Probably some of the golf courses, from what they're saying. Trump Towers, which is loaded with businesses on top of residential, in order to pay this $250 million debt that they're going to owe to the government, which is going to be the fine. And so, but the crazy thing is, this was a civil case. There's still 4 other charges that go along with this. And guess what? The judge debated this ruling is the judge on the other 4. So you have a pretty good idea where this is going to go.
Wow. Well, other than that, I mean, it's just another day in, in politics with Donald Trump. Like I said, I used to love the guy when he's on the, The
Apprentice.
The Apprentice. That's right. The Apprentice. You fired.
Yeah. Man. Reality TV show.
That was my show, man. Then he had the Celebrity Apprentice and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But it ain't funny now. With all these charges, man. It just ain't funny at all. I mean, and then the crazy part is they having Republican debates and he's not even showing up for. He ain't worried about the debate. I'm gonna win anyway. So
he got a 43-point lead. He got a 43-point lead. I mean, his showing up can damage it because as soon as he talks, he's gonna shoot himself in the foot.
So the crazy thing is the debates are tonight, and where is he showing up to today? He's showing up at an auto plant that is not a UAW auto plant. It's not even part of the union. He's showing up at an auto plant because he is not a proponent of unions.
Wow.
He's doing his own counter programming.
We talk about Trump, right? So let's talk about the auto workers for a minute, right? It's a lot of people on strike, man. You got the writers in Hollywood. I think they just got something done. You still got the actors in Hollywood. Got the auto workers happening here. I heard President Biden was out there with the auto workers, and he's marching with them and everything. So let me ask you this: in America, right, or in the world in general, I don't know all the specifics about the auto workers strike, right? I believe that, the auto workers. I'm gonna give it to you from the pros and the cons, right, or two sides of the coin. I've always said when companies go on and brag about how high their stock price is and how much money they're making, yeah, that sends a flag, signal, smoke signal up in the air to the employees. We should get more money. We're helping them get rich. Why can't we get more money? So that's what I'm going to say in defense of the employees, that, hey, the company's getting richer. Why can't we get richer? Okay, well, at least make more money. They're not going to get rich. Let's be real about it, right? But then you have the other side of the coin. They want a 40% pay raise and want a 4-day work week. I don't know of too many companies that give 4-day work weeks, and I don't know of too many companies that give 40% raises at one time. So, what are you guys' thoughts on this? This is a tough one, man. I mean, are the car companies just making as much money as the NFL or something, where they can just afford to give people 40% pay raises? I mean, it sounds to me catastrophic to give anybody in any business 40% pay raise, because that sort of blows your business model out of the water. Like, I think when people have not managed a business, I don't think they understand all the expenses that go with a business. So when these businesses are initially built, they might have budgeted, say, for example, worst case scenario, 25% towards employee salaries, right? And they start you out at 15%, and slowly through attrition, the people who stay might make it one day to the 25% of the total profit before they retire. But yet you got people who stay for a few years and leave, and you're constantly hiring people into the entry level. So nobody ever really gets to the 25% budgeted payroll amount. And payroll is your biggest expense with any company, right? Sure. So my thought is, from a business manager's perspective, is that, hey, I'm all in favor. They probably don't make enough money. But I did hear in the news the thought of what I was thinking, that if they give this 40% raise, does that force them to make the cut somewhere else? So in other words, if auto worker or auto company A has, I don't know, 100,000 employees, and they give this 40% raise, do they lay off 40,000 people so they basically just took the money from people who are already working and push it to the remaining people, and then the remaining people have to work hard as heck, because what happens is you still got to do the same amount of work, but they're getting paid more money, and maybe they do work a 4-day work week, but maybe they go on from, I don't know, 100 parts per hour to 300 parts per hour. And then then you have all these snowball effects. The cars not being built as well, people getting stressed out and actually quitting. And then, so it's a lot of things I think people just don't see until they get into a management position about all the moving parts in a business. So again, if the companies are making that money, I'm all for the employees making more money. But what is going to be the end effect on this? If they give a 40%, have you guys ever gotten a 40% pay raise on your job and said, hey, look, I'm not working 5 days, I'm working 4? I mean, don't get me wrong. If they can pull this off, good for them. But is that even realistic?
Carlos, I have to admit, I'm not up on the UAW strike, but I thought that I read somewhere that they're asking for 40%, but they're asking for it over a 3-year period of time. I don't think they're asking for 40% in one lump sum. I think it's going to be spread out over 2 or 3 years. I don't know. I think, personally, I think the car companies are going to start losing, because a lot of them are having to retool and change over, because electric vehicles are becoming extremely prominent now. And so a lot of them are going to have to change from fossil fuel to electric. And when you change over like that, you should, if I'm not mistaken, have to send some of your people back to be retrained to build these electric cars where they were building gasoline cars before. So it's got to be a tricky thing. Like you said, a lot of moving parts come into effect, because when you got to retrain people, that's an expense. When you got to retool all of your equipment now for electric vehicles, and those batteries that go into the electric vehicle, I know normal cars like the one that I drive is 3,500 pounds, but the one that my wife has, which is electric, is 5,100 pounds, and that's because the whole bottom of it is a battery. So now you got to go out and get batteries from somewhere else to bring in. So I think the expense is going to be enormous. And I don't think that they can afford to give a 40% raise in one whop. I think it's going to have to be over an extended period of time.
Most of these strikes tend to be, their grievance tends to be with management and the insane amount of bonuses and these other things that are just way out of line in proportion to what the workers receive. And so I know a lot of that is, even for the companies that I've worked with as a consultant, these bonuses, some of these people make more in bonuses than the employees make all year long, just for a bonus. And I was in sales. When I was in sales working for a couple of large companies, if my team did well, I did well. And I made some big bonuses. And I had a construction worker's mentality, because I'm like, I ain't gonna get this kind of bonus all along. So I'm gonna put it away because there's gonna be some lean times. Right. I've also worked for a company. No, actually, I forget that multi-billion-dollar company I work for. I'm gonna take it down on another level.
Okay.
My auto repair shop in Maryland used to be open 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. And then they experimented and gave the mechanics and everybody off, and they started closing on Saturday. Bunch of people who worked throughout the week were pissed because Saturday was their only day to take their car in to get work done. Mm-hmm. And so one day I asked the owner of the manager, she was the manager, not the owner. And I said, hey, what's going on with this not being in on Saturday? She said, Gary, let me tell you something. We are going to stay closed on Saturday. Our productivity is up and the quality is up because our guys aren't burned out. Our mechanics need the time off to spend with their families. And we found out they're doing a better job and better quality work having Saturday off. So we'll take the hit. And if people want to go to another place to get their work done, that's fine, but we're going to ride it out. That was 10 years ago, and they're still doing it. And their business is grown as a result because they just focused on quality and the consumer got used to it. Yeah, they lost some people, but they didn't lose me. The consumer stayed with them and their quality's been up. So I guess it depends, it's very situational. But I'd rather go for quality than quantity and, bring my car there and get it fixed right the first time than to keep bringing it back, because then that costs me more time and my time is worth a whole lot more money.
Gary, that is very similar to what happened once COVID hit.
Oh, yeah.
People had to work from home. And what companies found was that the production went up and they got more work out of people.
That's just right.
Especially in the Washington, D.C. area, because now you don't have to get up at 5:30 and get out in traffic to get into Washington, D.C. for 8 o'clock job. And people have to get out of bed, take a shower, go to their computer, do their work, take a lunch break. Also, you didn't have people talking about what they did for the weekend at job. And
wasting time around on the water cooler, wasting all that time.
And so that's why a lot of companies said after things cleared up, you stay at home and keep on working from home, because they were getting so much more production out of their people not having to get in traffic, get on the subway in the morning, get on the subway in the afternoon, deal with traffic going home. So,
yeah, we started running our teams every other week during COVID. Mm-hmm. And so rather than come in every day, my team would stay home and I'd run my team from home via WebEx and Zoom, So it worked. It worked.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I know a lot of financial institutions are closing on Saturdays where, you still have some that are open on Saturday, but there are a lot of, bank branches that have decided not to be open on Saturday. And I think what I'm hearing about the auto shop was the fact that customers, they found ways to work around. If you really wanted to stay with that company, you could drop your car off in the morning, maybe use the night drop, have your wife come back and pick it up on lunch, get off early one day, go back and pick up your car. So you have to find ways to work around it. So I'm really happy for that business that they were able to find a way to work for their employees, and it worked for the customers. If they're still in business, is still thriving, then obviously it worked.
It worked.
So I think the key here is this. realistically, I think the company has to know what their breaking point is, and they know what their breaking point is. So if they're gonna, and what it's gonna come down to is somebody's gonna break first. We don't know who's gonna break first. An employee's gonna say, "Hey, look, I can't live." I think they're getting a $500 a week stipend or something like that. I don't know how long they can live off that. I mean, most people's car payment is more than $500, a month now. So one $500 check. We haven't been talking about mortgage, food, children, insurance, clothing,
Daycare.
daily daycare expense. So
Yeah.
all these different things come into play. So that's basically no money. But another thing to consider is this: if you give these pay rates, which I think, Mr. Spivey, I agree with. I think it is going to be over a certain amount of time. Now, again, I don't even think I've gotten 40% pay raise over 10 years. If you get 3% a year, I mean, what's that roughly? You figure it out, right? Roughly 30%.
Yeah.
I don't know. Figure it out. So anyway, if they do get to 40%, great. But at the same time, another factor to consider is by 2035, most states are saying that they're only going to allow the sales of electric vehicles by 2035.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, with that being
Yep.
said, a couple of different issues may come up in the future concerning vehicles. When a car starts to get old, it starts to have a lot of issues under the hood. You can replace the tires, you can replace the rims, the wheels, right? Door hinges and things tend to last longer than, I guess you can say, pistons in an engine. So it's usually when people get rid of a car, it's usually because the transmission or engine or something to that effect went bad. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but I think all that's out the window with an electric vehicle. I mean, you have a transmission, but doesn't require transmission fluid. You have
Right.
you have the engine it's battery operated. You open up the hood of the electric F-150. There's no engine there anymore. So
Right.
now we got a situation where the cars are probably going to last a lot longer. Now, again, I don't know how much that battery is going to beat you down when you have to replace a battery on the car, but the car now has the ability. If most people say, "Man, I just made that last payment after 5 years. Now I'm starting to have car troubles." So what does it mean with an electric vehicle that doesn't have an engine under the hood anymore, just has extra trunk space? Is that going to be 10 years, 15 years before you start to have problems? So now you don't sell as many cars. Now, the electric car is going to cost more probably, but you don't sell as many cars, okay? So then you don't need as many parts because you don't have underneath the hood, you don't have the engines and all these different things, moving parts literally. So then that puts an industry out of business. And then you don't need people to assemble anything underneath the hood because it doesn't exist anymore. So now a whole different area of the automotive industry may be out of work completely. So I think this strike is really interesting because you can't just plan it for today or for the next few years. This is really a strike that's going to set the country up for the next few years. And look, we already know Michigan has gone through some serious financial problems. After they moved a lot of the factories to other areas of the country, and at one point, Motown was Motown, right? I mean, they're making all the cars up there. You got car factories everywhere. I mean, in the country now. So. I mean, some are foreign cars, Toyotas and things like that, but you got Ford plants and Chevy plants, and I guess what's the Chrysler company called, Stellantis or something like that? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You got a Jeep deal
The
in Mexico.
Chrysler, Jeep, and Dodge division, right?
They got a division in Mexico.
Fiat. I think it's Stellantis. I can't. Please forgive me.
Yeah, that's what it starts with. Yes, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, but all these jobs, this is a totally different look that's going to affect the country. And will these people even have jobs after 2035? Because I would think you're going to probably start reducing your workforce if the most important component of the car for the last 100 years, it's suddenly not there underneath the hood at all anymore. There's nobody putting the engines in, building the parts. I don't know. But so I think they need to get their money while they can get their money. And I think if you're in the auto industry and you're actually working in an assembly plant, I'm hoping those people are really looking at this thing long term, because that could be another crisis down the road. But I guess maybe that's another reason why they're trying to get their money now. But those are all different things that are going to affect the entire country and the auto industry. I mean, tires don't go out of, cars need tires. Okay. But I heard with electric vehicles, it's almost like a golf cart. From what I spoke to a guy who has an electric BMW. He's saying, "Hey, do you remember those slot races when you were kids?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, my electric car is almost just like that. When I step on the gas, it just automatically picks up. And he said, when I take my foot off the gas, it like almost automatically stops. You almost don't need brakes. The brakes probably last you 5 years now. I'm like, what? So now that's
it is like that. Well, my wife
Carlos,
has an electric
you
car.
said it jokingly, but
it is like that.
You get an electric car.
Yeah.
You change the brakes about every 5 years.
That puts another industry out of business.
The batteries are warranted to 100,000 miles.
Really?
And he is exactly right. Most of these electric cars go from 0 to 60 in like 3.3 seconds.
They flat out fly.
I mean, because
my wife's car flat out flies.
There is no engine. I mean, they have so many advantages, and I don't want to dwell on it, but a prime example was yesterday morning, our pet had a little issue with a bee sting, and she was kind of really in dire strait. So we contacted a emergency pet care facility, and we had to go over, sign in, and wait in the car. And make a long story short, we had to wait for 4 hours to get Stella in for the doctor to see her and give her a shot. We did not know there was a bee sting. The point I'm making is that 4 hours that we sat in the car, I looked at our episode of the Thought Brothers from last week. I looked at a movie, and the car continuously ran the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
And I think when we started, the percentage left in the battery was 84%. And 4 hours later, it was 80%.
Wow.
So that gives you a prime example of what the gasoline car. If I had been sitting for 4 hours in a gasoline car, it would have probably have run hot.
Wow.
I was going to say, you'd have overheated.
Yeah.
Without moving. Yeah.
Wow. So they have their advantages. And your friend was exactly right. It's something that you have to get used to, because I drive my wife's car quite a bit, which I thought I never would. It's electric. And then I have a gasoline car. So a lot of times when I get in my Genesis and I'm coming up behind a car and I take my foot off the gas, thinking the car is going to start slowing down immediately, and I end up having to slam on brakes because the car continuously goes.
Got it, right.
There is a
different feel.
Yeah.
Well,
fellas,
I don't want to change the subject, but I will. And I can't give Carlos a hard time today. Because my Cowboys, they got lit up on last Sunday. They let Arizona take them to the woodshed. But your Commanders didn't look real good.
Hey, look, let me tell you something. My mother once told me, so your first reaction is usually your correct reaction. So I think I initially said, this bouncing back between college and NFL football, that I said, Deion's schedule looked pretty good over there in Colorado, but man, I don't know about that Oregon, and I don't know about that USC game coming up. Okay, that was my first reaction, okay? And then my first reaction was, man, I'm tired of this inconsistency with this Washington football NFL franchise. I should go ahead over and be a Steeler fan. I can drive 5 hours to Pittsburgh. I can go see a game occasionally. You know, Mike Tomlin, if he has an off game, he always figures it out. And sure enough, he lost the opener, and he'd have figured it out again. They done won 2 in a row. Here come the Steelers again. So, look, I don't even know what to say, other than the fact that, man, I'm just looking for a good college football game to watch or a good NFL game to watch. But these blowouts, man, are just too much for me. Yes, Washington, and they laid a complete egg. To me, Ron Rivera, unless he wins a playoff game, he can't just make the playoffs. He has to win a playoff game and or win the division. But he's got to get into the playoffs, and he's got to win a playoff game to keep his job. The team wasn't prepared. It was like alumni homecoming weekend for the Washington NFL franchise. Got Magic Johnson and Cookie up in the booth. And you know, then the rain, it was already raining, so we needed some sunshine on the field. Magic up there shaking his head. Cookie talking about when we're going to go to the NBA game or something. I don't know what's happening, but I just know they laid the big egg, man. It was terrible. The only reason they scored is because they decided they didn't want to get shut out. They kicked the field goal. It would have been 37-0. So That's crazy. And the only thing that to me was worse than that was what the heck happened down in Miami. Sean Payton is a veteran head coach. The man, they gave up 70 points. The record's 72, and Miami
could have been worse. It could have been worse.
Could have kicked the field goal.
Yes.
And took they laid off.
Yes.
What Russell Wilson? Look, man, you know, Sierra's wife is beautiful. Man, he might just want to go spend some time with her because he ain't playing like he played in Seattle. Russell Wilson was a bad man in Seattle. He's really bad in Denver right now, and I'm not in a good way. Sean Payton is saying, man, I miss Drew Brees. That he can come out of retirement because something ain't right. And then to give both of them credit, Sean Payton and Russell Wilson don't play defense. So, hey, look, I thought the Washington Commanders last week beat a good Denver team. They may have beaten the worst team in the league. That's what I think happened. Denver may literally be the worst team in the league, and Washington may not be that far behind because they just barely got by them. They almost gave it up on the Hail Mary. So, at this point, can somebody just give me a good game to watch? Somebody, Dion.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned Drew Brees coming out of retirement because today on First Take.
Don't tell me.
Today on First Take, Stephen A. Smith mentioned that Colin Kaepernick wrote a letter to the president or the GM of the New York Jets and said that he would like to come and work with the scout team. And so that's something that's going to be interesting. You know, a week or so ago, we talked about Brady had expressed the interest to come to New York because they apparently are really hurting because this quarterback, Wilson, they said if he gets any worse, the team just should quit the rest of the season. And
what did Shannon Sharp say about him? He couldn't play dead in a horror movie. He said he's like a blind dog in a meat factory.
That's exactly what he said.
Oh my gosh.
So you know, that's gonna be interesting, but I sincerely believe that will never happen. Colin Kaepernick has been out of the league since 2016. He's probably in excellent shape. And he was a quarterback who went to a Super Bowl. You know, so we're not talking about a scrub. He was a quarterback who went to the Super Bowl, but I think the black ball that they put on him years ago for taking that knee, I think it's going to always stand. And I think that the owners are in the same position they are with having a black head coach. I think they prefer to lose and rather than bring Colin Kaepernick back.
Hey, let me ask you this too. Did you guys hear about? I thought it was a message out online that Deion Sanders reprimanded two young men for not standing for the national anthem.
Yeah,
I read about that, and then
is
I heard
that true? Did we miss something?
I heard it was false. I heard it was something that had been put out there, but I heard it was false.
The source, the web source has reported unreliably in the past.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wouldn't repeat that so much. I circulated it to you all so we would at least be aware of what's going on.
Sure.
But the source of that has reported unreliably in the past. We'll put it that way.
But I'll tell you something that was interesting that is reliable and is that Deion received a text message from Travis Hunter. And he said that he wanted to play in the USC game this Saturday and that he would not take no for an answer. And
a player saying that to the coach?
That's what Travis Hunter said to Deion. And Deion replied that the answer was absolutely no. He said, because you are a person that is doomed to be great. And I'm not going to let your career be ruined over one football game.
I agree with Deion.
I agree.
Allowed to play.
I agree.
From what I read, they said it shows that Deion is more concerned about his players than he is concerned about winning.
That's why I still believe That's why I still believe, even with this loss, I still believe.
Now, one other thing I'll throw out here, y'all call me the agitator, so I'm gonna do some agitating.
Okay, all right.
I don't know if you all are familiar with the thing that Keyshawn Johnson came up with on Undisputed this past week.
What's that?
Apparently, Keyshawn was at the game with Oregon and Colorado, and he was leaving the game, and somebody pulled his coattail, which allegedly has been confirmed, that somebody pulled his coattail and told him that all of the coaches, or the majority of the coaches, got together and all of them contacted the Oregon head coach with techniques that they should be able to utilize in order to beat Colorado last Saturday. And that they are passing on this information to other teams because their goal is to take Deion down a notch because they feel he's too cocky and confident. So they're going to work collectively to take him down.
No, I mean, if that's true, that's fine. But Deion's gonna find a way. He's just that good.
Yeah,
he's just gonna raise the bar.
It does not surprise me. It does not
play football. Let me tell you something. Great coaches, like you say, like Gary said, great coaches will find a way. When I'll go back to one great coach who actually was in Washington. When Gibbs was in Washington, and they needed to win a game or they needed to run the ball, everybody knew Riggins was gonna get the ball.
That's it.
They just couldn't stop him. They literally couldn't stop. If it was 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 3rd and goal, 4th and goal, he could not be stopped. He's in the Hall of Fame right now. I don't think he ran for over 10,000 yards, but I think he's in the Hall of Fame more so because he just simply couldn't be stopped in the clutch, in the moment. They all knew he was gonna get the ball, and nobody could stop him. Literally. Right. Nobody was backing up for Joe Theismann. I mean, Joe Theismann had a nice arm, but he wasn't Tom Brady. And they knew Riggins was going to get the ball, and they couldn't stop him. They literally couldn't stop. So you can pass on all the techniques and information you want. Everybody knew Joe Montana was going to throw to Jerry Rice when they needed yards. I mean, John Taylor was all right, but we knew Rice was going to catch them passes, and they couldn't stop him. So I'm just saying there are certain situations that if you're great at your craft, at your trade, what you do for a living, they can give all the information they want, but you still got to stop me. Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't happen. So we'll see. I wouldn't surprise me though that that's actually happening because I think a lot of these guys feel like they've worked hard for many years, and Deion comes in with all the flash and all the glamour and all that good stuff, and he's having success right away. I mean, I'm really surprised. I think most of us are surprised that he had as much success as he's had already. I mean, we expected him to come in, and we expect him hopefully to have a winning season, like was that a 7-5 or something like that? But we didn't expect him to get off to a 3-0 start. And I think then the hype is built, and Oregon has shut it down. I think USC. I'm gonna go back now to my initial reaction. I think USC is gonna shut it down. I think because Colorado lost so bad this week, they're gonna tighten things up. But you can look for USC probably to be 28-14 over Colorado, and USC will be in control the whole game. They'll score. They'll have sustained drives. They'll score a touchdown at least every quarter. Colorado will get one in every once in a while, but I think USC is going to be in control. Now, the good news is I think after these two losses, I think Colorado will get back on track. The only thing concern I do have now is that Utah has moved up to number 10 in the rankings, and that's the last game they have is against Colorado. So we might be looking at a 3-loss season for Colorado. But considering they only won one game last year, if they go 9-3, I think they'll be okay. I think they'll be. It'll still be prime time up in Colorado. I
know both of you brothers predicted 10-2.
I did.
I predicted that the record would be flipped 11-1. Yeah. So I'm already got my one.
Yeah.
With Oregon. So I'm still a whole lot of hope that they can get by USC. And if they get by USC, I think the team is on a roll. I think they'll go in my 11-1 if they can get by USC.
Here's the problem. They lost so bad to Oregon. Even at 11-1, they might not make the college football playoff. They would have to win the conference. If they win the conference at 11-1, then they'll get a bid. They'll forgive them for the one loss. But if they lose a second game, they're not getting into the playoff, and they're literally going to have to win the conference. So, but I still think they're going to have a great season. I mean, even at 9-3, they'll get a decent bowl. But I just don't see 11-1 at this point. I would like to see it, but you got to remember, most teams don't do 11-1.
That's true.
Whether they got Newt Rockney or Woody Hayes or Bo Schembechler or whatever, most teams don't do 11-1. So for Deion to come in his first season and get 11-1, that would be pretty good. I mean, it just doesn't happen to most college coaches ever. I mean, Alabama has been blessed to go undefeated and have some 11-1 seasons and things like that. But that's few and far between. I mean, most of the good programs lose about 2 games per year. Okay, and the only teams that don't lose 2 games per year are the team that basically end up in the college football championship, and they're usually a 1-loss team that are in with 2 losses, or you very rarely have 2 undefeated teams. So just keep all those things in mind. But we'll see. But look, I love Deion. I'm just hoping to see a good game this weekend and hope things work out.
But, I think if they go 11-1 and you say that they don't win the conference, I'm going to tell you, I look at it like this, and you're a banker. Mm-hmm. When it comes to money, they'll find a way to get Deion on that stage, because Deion has increased the viewers for college football exponentially.
Yes, he has.
And
across the board, you're right.
And if you got Deion in a bowl game or something like that, you are talking about probably another 20 million viewers. That's true. I think they'll find a way to
he'll be in some bowl game.
Into a bowl game if they go 11-1. I think just the numbers, and we know that the NFL and the NCAA is all about that mighty dollar.
Hey, let me ask you this. Hey, we talked about a lot of topics tonight, right? Is Russell Wilson and Sean Payton's contracts guaranteed in Denver? Does anybody know that? Because if their contracts are guaranteed, what does that mean? I'm gonna have to do some research on that, because I got a funny feeling both of them might be going. Sean Payton might be going back into retirement soon, and I got a funny feeling Russell Wilson is headed for retirement, because, like I said, he was a bad man in Seattle, but he ain't done nothing in Denver. And Sean Payton got a lot of pride. Even if they lose 50-20 next week instead of 70-20, I don't know how much. Jimmy Johnson, how long did he come out of retirement for the Miami Dolphins? 1 year or 2 years?
I think it was one.
1 year. 1 year.
I'm thinking it might be a similar situation to that, because he's not used to losing, and this season goes south. I mean, he's already embarrassed about making NFL history with the 70. We used to call it a 70 burger or something. But anyway, he's already upset about that. So I don't know what his but if he I think if these guys retire, that's the only way to get out of their contract. He can't go coach for another team. Russell can't go play for another team. But I just see both of them. Now, if they cut Russell, they still got to pay him, and he can go play for another team. So I don't know, but I think both of them are basically. John Elway did not do a good job getting a young head coach and a young quarterback up there. He wanted to go with veterans, and it seemed like the only veteran he's chosen that worked out was Peyton Manning. He got a Super Bowl out of Peyton Manning, but other than that, the other coaches and quarterbacks have not worked out in Denver. I mean, what are your thoughts on the great John Elway? Is he ready for retirement from being a general manager or president?
Well, I remember when Sean Payton was. Denver had to get permission from the New Orleans Saints to interview Sean Payton for that job. So Sean Payton was an analyst at the time for the NFL analysts on Sunday. So I was kind of confused as to why they needed to get permission to interview him, not unless when he left the New Orleans Saints, that going as an analyst was still part of his contract. I just don't understand why they would need to get permission, because I thought when he left New Orleans Saints, he was clear. I mean, if they still owed him money, they would have to pay him. but I remember distinctively that they had to get permission in order to interview him. So, I mean, if Sean Payton leaves Denver, he can always go back into the booth as an analyst.
I think that's what's going to happen.
And
Just like
Russell
Jimmy
Wilson-
Johnson did, right?
Then Russell Wilson probably could be his counterpart, as an analyst, and both of them could go
On second take. Second
Yeah.
take. That first take. Second take.
Yeah. But
RG3
John
made the
Elway,
transition.
this is surprising because you've always heard John Elway makes very good decisions, and he just kind of I don't know if he made the decision or if the owner made the decision this time, but he made a bad choice. It didn't look that way because all you could hear was Sean Payton, who was successful at New Orleans Saints, was going to Denver, and he was going to regenerate Russell Wilson, but it just hadn't played out that way.
Hey, I want you to think about this too, because I know, like I said, I know we're getting close to the end, but I want you guys to think about this, right? How good coach, in order to be a great coach, you got to have great players, right? But you still have to be a great coach. I mean, you're not going to win the championship. There've been plenty of coaches that had talent that couldn't win championships. So if you think about all the teams that have ever won the Super Bowl, most of those teams have had the same quarterback. I mean, the six that New England won, Brady was quarterback on all of those. The 4 that Pittsburgh won in the 70s, that was Bradshaw. Right. The other 2 that Pittsburgh won, that was Ben Roethlisberger, right? So it's not like you're seeing different quarterbacks with the same coach win the Super Bowl. I mean, Joe Gibbs, that's why he got a lot of credit. He won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. It is very hard to find one good quarterback. And it's obviously he's proven his point because it's been like 30 years and they still haven't found a quarterback really. So we're hoping Howell works out. And Howell, to me, looks like the best quarterback they've had, even in this bad loss. He looked like the best. And all they had to do was play a young guy from the start. But the key is Sean Payton didn't win anything without Drew Brees. Bill Belichick's not winning anything without Tom Brady. So now it comes into the fact that, how good is Sean Payton really without a, Hall of Fame quarterback? We'll see. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the guy. I mean, it's a long season, but things don't look too good. Like I said, I think Russell just needs to retire at this point. I think.
Hey, Gary, did you just notice something? Gary,
What's that?
Did you just notice something? He mentioned all of these coaches and the quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, but he never mentioned Troy Aikman and Jimmy Johnson.
I'm sure it was an oversight. I think they won 2 Super Bowls back to back.
Well, you know what? Let's give
and
Troy
then he
Aikman.
retired.
Let's give Troy Aikman in Dallas. They do, and he won 3 in 5 years with.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
But the point I'm trying to make is, most of these teams win with the same or coaches win with the same quarterback. That's the point. And Sean Payton, I don't think he's going to win. So in other words, I don't know. Dallas really hasn't been that consistent since Troy Aikman retired. I mean, they got more consistent. Romo did a little something. Yeah. Dak Prescott's done a little something, but they really haven't been dominant since Troy Aikman left, if you think about it, right? And Jimmy Johnson left, because Barry Switzer, let's be real about it. He sort of won with Jimmy Johnson's players, right?
He did.
Let's be real about it, right? Yeah. And they haven't done anything since. So I think that we got to watch Sean Payton real close for the rest of the season. We got to watch Russell Wilson real close for the rest of the season. We need to see what's going to happen with the Giants. The Giants did lose 40-0. So I was thinking they were the worst team in the NFC East, but they've come back. And now Washington's lost 37-3. So are they the worst team in the NFC East? But they're still 2-1. So we got a lot of question marks. Pittsburgh is back to being, after losing their opener, they're 2-1. And also Kansas City couldn't score points without Eric Bieniemy, but I think they put up, was it 41 or something crazy like that? They got Taylor Swift up in the suite yelling and screaming for Jason Kelce.
With Kelce's mom.
Travis or Jason?
Travis
Kelce.
Sitting next to his mama.
Sitting next to his mama.
Okay, that's cool.
So here's how we can end. We can end the show with a sensational headline.
What's that?
Carlos the banker said Sean Payton has been exposed. That's the headline.
How about that, baby?
That's the headline. And we'll see it next week whether or not Carlos the banker knows what he's talking about. But that's the headline. Carlos
Yes,
the
sir.
banker on the Thought Brothers says Sean Payton has been exposed and players hate Russell Wilson. Carlos, that's what he said.
The banker that approved the
banker.
loans.
Yes.
Oh my God.
We brought it back full circle. Ladies and gentlemen, the clock on the wall says that's all. We are the Thought Brothers. And until next week, we are out of here.
All right.
Have a good week, everybody.